And I will be serving as one of the facilitators for tonight's discussion. And I'm joined tonight by...
I'm Anita Hughes. I'm a senior broadcast journalism major, and I will be serving tonight as well. So we're going to go ahead and start everything off. We're going to start off with a welcome from our Miss Grambling State University, Miss Demetri Robinson. And then we're going to get prepared for the prayer.
Good evening, everyone. To Ms. Hughes, Dr. Morganfield, Ms. Linda, the panelists, and the faculty staff at Grambling State University. I welcome you on behalf of the Mass Communication and National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice Educational Forum, Students Against Violence in Education. We thank you all for coming out tonight, and we hope that you all will take some valuable information from this forum, and that you will have open minds and open hearts to our panelists, and that you would just, feel welcome and feel free to ask any questions that you all have. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
And then next we're going to go ahead and we're going to open the ceremony with a prayer from Ms. Wimberly. All right, and this is the Director of Judicial Affairs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Would you all just either stand or just hold hands with the person next to you? I just believe there's power in prayer, and it's us not being unified. Whoever's standing next to you, just take someone's hand. Heads bowed, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we just come first of all just to say thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity, Lord God. We just give you praise and give you glory for everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and everything that you're getting ready to do. Father, we ask that you bless this program, Lord God. Father, we ask you to bless every participant here tonight, every orchestrator, Lord God, every committee member, Lord. Father, we ask you to bless Grambling State University, Lord God, as we continue to bind the violence on this campus. But we thank you for unity, we thank you for love, we thank you for peace, and we thank you for harmony. So, Father, we give you praise, we give you glory, that this program will be everything that you expect for it to be and more. We thank you for abundance, Lord God. We thank you for every person here, Lord God. We thank you for the SAVE program. We thank you, Lord God. We give you praise. We glorify you in everything that we do, Lord God, because we know we can't do anything on our own. But, Father, we can glorify you together. We can magnify you together. We can stand against this violence, Lord God, and we just thank you, Lord God, that it will be successful in the name of Jesus. We thank you for every person on program tonight. Everything that we hear tonight will be beneficial to each and every one of us, that we can go and take it, Lord God, to be a blessing to others. And Father, we ask you to bless the president of this university, Lord God. We ask you to bless President Gallo, his administration, every faculty, staff, and student, everyone connected to this university, Lord God. So, Father, we thank you that we join hands tonight in unity, in love, in oneness. And Father, we give you praise, we give you glory, and we give you honor for everything. In Jesus' precious name, amen. Amen.
Again, we'd like to thank you all for taking the time to come out and be a part of tonight's discussion. Tonight's event really grew out of conversations that I was having in my own department with my administrative assistant. We were talking about our concerns about young people, concerns about some of the things that we observe in the news and we hear in the news. And certainly in recent weeks, we all know of some significant events that have occurred on this campus that have greatly impacted the entire community here at Grambling State University as it pertains to violence. And so tonight's conversation is intended to be a proactive response. We are aware of the fact that another event was held similar to this one about a week or so ago. And so we know that there cannot be enough that we can do. The more we do, the better. So we want to say thank you to our panelists who have agreed to be a part of this conversation tonight. We're going to introduce them, and then we're going to begin the conversation. We've had the addition of a panelist tonight because one of our panelists was not feeling 100%. and wasn't quite sure if she was going to be able to make it or make it through tonight's presentation. So we have an additional person with us tonight. So I wanted to begin by introducing Ms. Sarah Renee Garner, who is a mass communication major, and she's a member of the Grambling Night staff. She writes and reports about various student issues, including issues related to campus safety. Next to her is Ms. Courtney Furry, who is also a mass communication student. She's currently a host of a radio show on the Lab Radio that is titled Keeping Current with Court. And so we're really happy to have her with us tonight. And then we have Mr. Darian Williams, who is the Student Government Association president. He's been very proactive in representing this university and is always willing to come out and be part of anything that's designed to advance the cause of the university. So we thank him for his presence.
Okay, and then we have Mr. Howard Cavanis Jr., and this is the GSU, the Chief of Police. You know, make sure everything is regulated on campus for our safety. And then we have Dr. Quentin Holmes. Dr. Quentin Holmes, okay, the Assistant Professor of Criminal Justice and Political Science and Public Administration. And then we have Mr. Clarence Williams, yes, the Assistant Professor of Social Work.
Okay, so on your program, you'll notice that we have several topics that we like to try to cover, and then we want to end tonight's session by allowing participants from the audience to ask questions or make comments, and then hopefully we'll end with some brief time of thinking about first steps or next steps that we all can take in order to help contribute to a more safe and sound environment. So we're going to begin tonight by having a little conversation with some of our students about behavior and ethics on campus. And we're going to just ask them the question, what's your sense of the state of campus issues as it relates to behavior among students, student understanding about ethics? Is this a conversation that's taking place? Should it be taking place? How can the university do a better job of facilitating that conversation? So, Darian, if you want to start us off, and we're going to allow the others to join in as they feel desire to do so.
Okay. So, behavior and ethics. I guess from a student standpoint, behavior is definitely something that we come in contact with every single day as students, and we have to make sure that on our parts, where our behavior stands. Because our behavior definitely sets the tone for how we react in class, how we react in the community. So behavior and understanding ethics definitely goes together. So I guess on the ethics standpoint, I think there could be more conversations about ethics, more transparency of I guess things that are going on campus that students want to know about, because a lot of students aren't aware of a lot of things that go on campus. So I think another means of being transparent, and I guess that's all around the board, students being more transparent, administration being more transparent to us, so that we can be able to understand the way that things work community-wise, campus-wise, so that when things do happen on campus, we're well aware of it. And certain circumstances that we don't understand, I think the quickness of that response from our administrators is definitely key and something that we look forward to doing. So I think that behavior, it starts with us. It starts with us individually, which will basically enhance us all as a group. But understanding ethics and understanding, the outlying purpose of the university and understanding your purpose individually, especially as a student, is definitely important.
So obviously, one of the sort of urgent issues that's driving our conversation tonight, we didn't speak of it in specific terms, but the most recent incident that we had here on the campus, in which we had a student who shot another student and another person on campus, and those individuals died as a result of the shooting. And certainly that has greatly impacted everyone. But talk about that from a student standpoint in terms of how were you all affected by that? And what was the message you think that we should be trying to take away from that particular incident?
I personally think that from the student to the faculty to the police, I think that we need to bridge the gap. I think there's a lot of students that are misinformed on, exactly what happened and what was in the police chief's hands. A lot of stuff people didn't understand. It turned from like a Grambling, campus thing to a Lincoln Parish thing, and a lot of students didn't even know that. So I think that communication needs to be better. So, just bridging that gap, because what we use is social media. So, I mean, the text alerts are fine, but do I think that there should have been more of a social media presence when, the incident happened? I really do think so, just so that students weren't posting the videos, that there weren't so, left unanswered questions. I really believe that there needs to be more communication, and we can bridge that gap with us becoming more informed, and then we're able to, give a educational answer about it.
Can you repeat the question again?
Just trying to gauge what students were thinking and feeling during and after this particular incident that occurred on campus in which there was a loss of life.
I think like a lot of students felt not. I actually have a friend of mine. She lived outside. She stays in Bowen, and she saw it happen, and she's very connected to what happened to the student, and she just felt like it's kind of just one thing after another with Grambling. If it's not a shooting this week, someone's getting sexually assaulted last week. And she just feels that, and not just she, students. I personally feel that safety is a big issue, and that there's not a lot of discussion about safety. There was one discussion, and it wasn't. I just feel like it wasn't handled correctly. And I think that there needs to be more people to take a lot of this stuff more seriously, students and administration.
Okay, I'm going to defer to Lanita.
Speaking of safety, like you were just now saying, this is more for the administrators. What policies do we have in place for students as far as safety? When parents send their kids off to college, they look to make sure that the college is a safe environment for their kids. And like the policies, so what policies do we have, that really will ensure that students will be safe on campus?
Coach P, everybody knows Dr. Fontaine.
Mm-hmm.
He strictly enhances or pushes the curfew.
Mm-hmm.
Students don't like that at all. You don't want to be in your room at 10 o'clock at night or 12 o'clock at night, but that's what we've been doing. Although it was a tragic event, it has opened some eyes and has caused people in the upper echelon to push back. So we're setting up roadblocks, as you know, and we're doing checks, ID checks. If you don't live in the dorm, you're not going in there after a certain time of night. We've got some kickback from that. Some students are upset, but some students are very happy we're out there doing that. I'm out there. I'm working straight nights now. I'm not working days anymore. But it doesn't happen on days. It happens on nights. The attitude of the students goes a long ways. We had a big fight yesterday. 3 females, 2 jumped on one. And it stays like that. You'll never know when it's going to escalate, and they go back to the room and come back with something else to retaliate on what happened. My greatest fear when I came to work here was working a homicide on the university campus. My greatest fear came true almost my 4th year here. And it was a double homicide. And it shook me to the core. I've been on several different homicide scenes, but to be there and see what I saw, it was, you can imagine the students that were there, those that were there filming the whole thing, that's uncalled for. And like you said about the social media, the rumors went out that there was a female involved, she was run over by a car, and she died at the hospital later, and the rumor went out about the victim being shot in the head. None of that was true. And we had students come and tell us stories that did not have nothing to do with the evidence we had there on the scene. It is very important that we don't release too much information too early, because it would definitely jeopardize the case and come back and haunt us when it comes time for a trial. Yeah. The reason that Lincoln Parish, if I may address that, was called in because we don't have the resources to process the crime scene. I don't have 7 different technicians I can put out there on a crime scene. We barely have 7 different officers we put out there, Yeah. But I had to call in someone that could process the crime scene for the evidence and do the right job while we assisted with crowd control and with the interviews and investigation too. So we have to be very careful on an open investigation like that, not to release too much information, because anything we may say or gets out, according to the police chief, according to GSU PD, or according to Lincoln Parish Sheriff's Office, could come back later on and trial it, and it just messed the whole case up itself.
Okay. What are the consequences that are set in place for people who commit the crime, or like, you know, victims of the crime? What are the consequences?
The victims,
Yeah.
once we locate a suspect, and if the suspect is charged, they get a criminal charge and they get a judicial affairs charge, a student conduct charge. I can't expel someone out of the university. That goes to Ms. Wimberly, and it goes on through Dr. Ponton and Mr. Wade. Personally, all I do is the criminal aspect of it. So anytime we make an arrest, I give them briefings every day. Each morning they get a briefing from me what happened the night before, the day before, so they can be up to par on what's going on. She knows about the fight. I'm sure you've seen the video. Several of you may have seen the video already too. I had like 4 different students send me the video, which I appreciate. That's really nice to get. And Ms. Wimberly can answer the rest of that.
Touch upon that, the consequences?
Yes, the consequences, it can be expulsion, depends on the nature of the incident. As far as the young man that did the shooting, I don't really have anything on him other than what the media said, but I did have to suspend him from school because of, you know, because of what he did. So it is consequential. What I tell the students all the time, if you know something is going on, don't wait until we get to this point. And you know, they say quick, I'm not snitching on anybody. It's not about snitching, it's about the safety of everyone on this campus. So that's my thing that I preach to the students day in and day out. If you know something, say something. You're here for your safety. We had a young man, I had the gun in my room because I heard the shooting outside of my room, and I didn't know if they were coming for me or not, so I just had the gun under my head, under my pillow. Admitted that he had the gun. Those are the kind of things that we have to deal with. And then they wonder why you're going home. It's because this is a weapons-free campus. We can't stress that enough.
If I can elaborate on that a little bit, it's not just Grambling State University. Louisiana Tech is bad. ULM is bad. In fact, at one point, ULM led in the top 10 in the nation on dope arrests. Because they was out there writing everybody one little single joint. They put them in jail for it. And the stats went up, Clary reported it, and boom, they made a national magazine. Yeah, we have our problems. We have our issues. I did an interdiction on a room one time. He got 6 pounds of marijuana out of that room, and he had a handgun under his pillow. He was sitting on his bed. So we have to, you know, can you step up on your bed? Man, I'm just laying back. He puts his hand by the pillow. I didn't know it was there, but it was there. It was a 45 caliber handgun. And he got kicked out too, but he was here for the wrong reasons. Different kind of business. He wasn't majoring in that kind of business, you know.
So am I hearing you suggest that part of the challenge that we're facing is a broader cultural issue in terms of perhaps students' perceptions about safety and how you are to protect yourself, and so as a result, not only here at Grambling but at other universities, we're challenged to see how it is we can manage students with weapons or the ways that students respond to conflict.
I'll be honest with you. I think that the press has a lot to do with it also. You know, marijuana is legal in ever how many states is legal. Why can't we have it legal here in Louisiana? I smoke a little bit of weed. Not me. I'm speaking. But we went and did a knock and talk. Where you knock on the door and introduce yourself and ask to come and speak with them on 15 rooms a little while back. 11 out of 15 has some type of drug paraphernalia or firearm in there. That's staggering. But I guarantee you go to Louisiana Tech, you'll have 11, 12, 13 out of 15, same way at ULM. It's not just Grambling State University, and the news like to harp on HBCU. Well, quit picking on us. Look at Tech, look at ULM. When I first came in, the narcotic guys was here breaching doors, knocking doors down with their balaclavas on, their face masks, because you know what a balaclava is, going in, handcuffing everybody, taking them out, and then they'd call the police department and say, hey, come over and secure your door. We're gone. Well, I met with the chief, the DA, and the sheriff, and I said, how many rooms have y'all done this to Louisiana Tech? None. Why are you doing us that way? Well, there was no answer. It was silence. You hear crickets. I would appreciate a call from now on. And I think they've breached 2 doors in the last 4 years. That's because our key didn't work to get in those doors.
So can we back up just for a minute, Mr. Darian, begin by talking about ethics and behavior on campus, and share a few concerns about perhaps there's more we could do. I heard Ms. Garner here saying that there's a perception, at least in her head, and perhaps in the heads of other students, that the campus is not safe. And that we're not just talking about people shooting, but incidences of rape, so on and so on. Violence really is about violating someone else's humanity, in whatever way that might occur. So I guess the question for me is, what are we as a university doing to encourage or challenge our students to higher ground? Are we doing enough?
I personally don't think that the university is. We have convocations every week or every other week about poetry, about whatever that they see is as important, but we don't have convocations about sexual assault. I think we had one, and that was a mandatory meeting, and that was after it happened. There needs to be conversations about what sexual assault is, what rape is, the definition of no, and there needs to be I think, better counselors to deal with it. I know someone who went into a counselor and she basically asked her questions about what she did to get raped, or you know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't think that was right of her. And I'm trying to formulate my sentences, very properly. And I think that there should be better measures taken, and I think that people should be evaluated, counselors should be evaluated and fired or let go if they don't meet the standard person.
Is there a response?
I was about to say, we've had forums with the students. I know probably maybe a month before the incident, it was a mandatory meeting with all students, and that's what we did. We were trying to let them know then this is the kind of situation we were trying to avoid. And, a lot of students were rude. They walked out. They didn't want to hear what we was trying to say. But I think information is key. And I think we may need to step up a game a little bit and have more, maybe in the beginning of school. I think we have that one. And we have the things doing the whole semester, but I think we need to have more forums with students we can talk about that, where they can ask questions and just, open up and just say what's on their minds.
So we've got a couple of professors on the panel here. The question that comes to my mind is this something that education can solve? Or is this a deeper cultural challenge or crisis that we're facing? I would like to think that education has the potential to impact this. But as I look at our curriculum, I know in our general education curriculum, there's absolutely nothing in the curriculum that has to deal with conflict resolution. There's nothing in there that deals with issues of civility. The kinds of things that at least are feeders for these problems, we don't seem to be addressing head on. So I'm curious to hear from our professors who are both sociologists, criminologists. You have some awareness of those issues. What's your take on that? Is there some possibility that we're missing?
I believe education can have an impact. When we say solve, I'm not sure, but it should be able to have an impact. The young lady here who suggested convocations, I think maybe some of that education should be, instead of a convocation, maybe have some speaker from a victims group who has been sexually assaulted come tell her story and help bring awareness. I agree with you about the conflict resolution. There's a lack of that, and I think a lot of our students don't play well in the sandbox with each other. So whereas we would think that people are able to solve issues with each other easily, it's a lot more difficult, I think, with this generation than probably previous generations.
I would add to that. I heard a lot of words being used, such as perception, behavior, ethics. What I would like to throw in as well, and also this is consistent across the country, quite frankly, ULM, Tech, Monroe, Ruston, Shreveport, you name it, in terms of some of the challenges that you have. And what I would like to throw out consideration as well is to make it better is a shared responsibility. Oftentimes that people look at one group to fix this or one group to fix that. And I'm just going to keep it, home here at Grambling. It's a shared responsibility in terms of that students, law enforcement, faculty, staff, visitors, all must contribute to when we talk about safety-related issues. And it can start from the smaller things, which we don't want to get involved in, such as maybe when I say we, students think of this nature,
from academic integrity, and I'll kind of tie it all together when you know you have one of your best partners cheating in class, so to speak, on exams, to having a gun and some other illegal substance on campus, and you know it, but you don't say anything, just that small thing, and because you can report those things anonymously, or until it gets to something significant where it is a fight, it is someone pull a knife, or they pull a gun, or someone sexual assault, and people don't come forward. Well, it's just shared responsibility that we all must play a role, and academics certainly play a part. Perception is reality, and whether it's happened or not, perception is a reality, and you have to deal with that. One of the perceptions across this country is that the African Americans, particularly males, are violent people that like to kill each other. That's a perception. But what I do know, and if you look at any statistical database, and I like to use the 80-20 principle, whether you're here on campus or you pick your city across the country, only about 20% of the people are doing things they shouldn't be doing. 80% are doing things they should be doing. And I think what we should try to do to help improve based on what all the comments that's been mentioned, and now is that the 80% must band together and take back, in this case, the campus, and making sure that we have enough discussion about campus safety, because I'll be honest with you, coming from my prior job and knowing how the different levels of violence and how it can happen, this campus is not a dangerous campus. It's not. The perception make you think that that's a dangerous campus. Even things that I know from experience, that when we get the text that the chief sent out, and we have to, and there's gunfire, we have to get that. What a perception would tell you that someone just shot at someone else. But what I know from 29 years of policing, a lot of times the gunfire is just someone wanting to show off their gun and shoot it. But because it happened on or near a campus, it must be reported. So when you get that text and there's gunfire, we will perceive that someone just got shot at. Is that a fair statement? Yes. Without knowing the facts, it could have been someone just showing off, and they shouldn't be, and maybe they don't know the laws. And someone mentioned that, is understanding the policies and procedures that, A, you shouldn't have a gun, but even if your friend bring one here that's visiting you, and he want to show it to you, you tell him, man, don't, because we're on campus, we're outside and it's late at night, don't pop off around and hear what it sounds like, because that triggers a whole bunch of other things. It triggers reports, as we know. It triggers fear of people here. It triggers parents having to look, see if they want to send their child to Grambling. And what do we all do now if you're a parent, or even if you're a student looking to go to your next school? You Google that university.
Yeah.
You don't want, when you Google Grambling State, the first thing pop up is how many gunshots were fired, because their perception is the same in the rest of the country. That when they see gunfire, they don't know it's kids playing with a gun. And I don't mean kids being salty, young people playing with guns. It's that sometimes that's what they are doing. So we got to do a good enough job here and having these type of meetings. This room, quite frankly, should be packed, because everyone should have brought someone with them. And we don't need to do it just one time when something bad happens. Right. It needs to be more proactive, and even in the good times, to make sure people are aware and encourage each other that it's okay to check your partner and tell them, hey man, you can't have that. We don't do that here at Grambling. And if you bring your gun when you come visit me, don't come back, because if you do, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to report it. Your friend going to come and see you. Either A, he's not going to bring the gun, or B, he's not going to take that he has it with him. So it's a shared responsibility, which is what I think, what we're trying to do here, actually, that we need to continue.
So I hear you suggested to us that we need to recreate the culture. And
yes.
At some level, the students have to be the drivers
yes.
behind that movement. Yes. How do we get students to own that position and to begin to move in that direction? I see we have some really responsive.
And I have something to say after.
Okay, well, I really think that Grambling is such a traditional school, which is a beautiful thing, but in the same sentence, I feel like, it has to become more modern. One of the best examples I can give is FYE. You go in that class when you're a freshman and you learn all about Grambling. You know, they want to instill this pride in you. And I just believe that I'm from San Francisco, California. So when I came here, I definitely learned right off the bat, not everybody is raised the same. Not everybody has the same thought process. Not everybody comes up the same way. So I feel like a class like FYE should be able to talk about these issues, as well as talk about the traditions of Grambling. But I think it starts there while you're young to become comfortable with talking about that type of stuff. A lot of people aren't comfortable with talking about rape. A lot of people aren't comfortable talking about murder. But I feel like if you start in these small classes and you're able to talk about it, I think that's when more people come to these forums. And I think it's not so much as people don't want to learn, it's more of they're not comfortable with it. So I think that that's one thing as far as academics that can help, and like you said, the convocations as well. And I just also believe that communication is a thing that us as students, we kind of get angry with people. I think it's a beautiful thing that you guys are blocking off campus. I haven't lived on campus in a couple years, but when I did live here, I didn't feel the safest, and it's not because of the police, it's just simply because it's an open campus. But one thing I wish that the way that was handled would have been like an official statement that was, you know, kind of broadcasted more out to the students, because I saw something on Twitter saying that I don't believe stuff on Twitter. I'm not that person because, you know, I want to be a journalist, so I'm very, you know, a fact check person. But like I said, not everybody wants to do that, not everybody thinks like that. So the second they see something on Twitter, they're going to believe it. So on Twitter, it's where I saw that they were doing the checkpoints, and if you didn't have your ID or a decal, you would get fined $5,000 and sent to jail. So it kind of is like, me, I wanted questions, so, you know, I asked faculty, but a lot of people don't do that. So they go with, oh, Grambling got us messed up.
Yeah, they tripping.
And, you know, I just wish that communication would be kind of, you know, put together, that if Grambling Police Department could have an Instagram, a Twitter to keep us in, or be able to say, like, this is not what's happening, and diffuse the situation right away. We have an official Grambling Twitter that really is not connected with the students at all. So it's kind of those certain things, I feel like that's why students kind of get frustrated. I don't know, and also it's just, I think that's the main central thing is communication, and people aren't comfortable with it because they've never had to be.
Well, just to sort of in terms of student involvement, I think that we've all, it's been like kind of thing, communication. Students aren't, these types of things aren't broadcast. People aren't putting these types of things together where we can have honest discussions about what's happening on campus and how we can make it better. I think students, you know, I do write for the Grambling Night, and I understand that the reputation of the Grambling Night is messy. I completely get that. But at the same time, when students try to write about what they've experienced, they get pushback. Talking about something, well, that's not the case. We're not doing this, that, or the other, you know, from administration. And I think that, you're like, when people try and silence me, I just get louder. So I think that maybe where students stand, I think maybe we should just be more, not aggressive, but just a little louder. Because whenever I need something done from administration, I have to bother them, and I have to pester them. And if that's what I have to do, then that's what I'll do to get what I need. But I shouldn't have to do that to you. But I will. So that's just how I feel.
And I have to go back, because this was some great discussion. Just to go back to what Sarah said about the convocation and the academic aspect of making campus more safe. I think once we get into terms about the convocations and the seminars and the forums and things like that, and to mesh that with the 80-20 rule, is that 80% of the students who are, like you all that are in here right now, are the ones who are aware, the ones who are coming to ask questions, but that other 20% are the ones that we're worried about, the ones who, you know, are committing these crimes, the ones who really need this knowledge. So I guess the impact will come in is when this 80% would go and try to instill some type of knowledge into that other 20%, and if not, if you see them committing an act or committing some type of crime, we should be strong enough, we should be, I guess, the advocates to say, okay, well, this person did this person did that, without having the fear of, well, this person may do this to me, this, this may happen, because at the end of the day, you're doing right for your school, you're doing right for yourself as an individual, because if you continue to let that 20% dictate the reputation of our university, dictate our safety measures here on campus, then the things are going to continue to happen. And that's what Chief Cabinets was speaking about, because I call Chief Cabinets like 100 times a day, just to get information. And I guess from the Twitter standpoint, where I definitely love that idea about the Instagram or some type of social media, because that's really the main presence of students nowadays. And that would help out a lot, because when the incident did happen, and Chief can attest to this, I kept calling every 5 minutes because there was so many false accusations about things and this happens on a daily basis. Somebody is fighting on campus, there's a false accusation that comes with it. Somebody is shot on campus, there's a false accusation about somebody else being shot, and it's just, why do we have the sense to, and I get that we want to be more knowledgeable about the situation, and communication is key. But that shared governance portion of it really helps. I remember we put out a message, I put out a message on Facebook when the incident happened about the false accusations that were going around social media and different things like that, because we can't tell you how many calls and text messages we got, and it was a devastating moment, but we still have to be strong, enough for you all, strong enough to be able to take the concerns that you all have, take the, the tears and everything that we were getting when they were coming into our offices and everything like that, because we're students as well, but we are strong advocates for you all. So I guess my question would be, what can we do to appeal to that 20%, or some type of measures that need to be taken for the 20% that really need to know this information, the ones that are committing these crimes and everything like that, that hinders the university. Because like they say, one small apple can spoil the entire group.
And I actually will say, so a couple weeks ago, I actually wrote a story regarding the whole talk that we had about sexual violence. And this is what kind of my point. So I wrote something about Chief Cabinets that wasn't untrue. And he took the time out to call me, talk to me, and explain to me that wasn't the case. And that's just kind of more of what we need, in terms of administration. He took the time, he sat with me, we talked, I fixed it, all is, what I'm saying, and I feel like more administration should be like that. Instead of me asking, when me asking a question, you shouldn't get offended by what I'm asking you, because obviously I see something wrong in whatever's happening. You should just be like, well, this is what we're doing, and this is how, what are some suggestions, how can we fix it?
I have a couple of things that were really particularly interesting to me. One is the idea that you have this idea of 80-20. I wonder if it's the 80 that needs to be awakened first, and not the 20.
I believe it's the 80.
And then once you get that, because Dr. Holmes made a very key point in saying, what would happen if students were known to be the ones saying, this is Grambling? We don't do that at Grambling. The problem becomes, oftentimes when we say this is Grambling, some negative or some pejorative idea is being attached to that. And how do we flip that to get it to the place where it should be? And I'm sure at one point it was, where old school times, there were certain things you just didn't do, and to get back to the point where students began to recognize this as sort of hallowed ground. This is a place of integrity. This is a place where you come to be elevated. This is a place where you come to be changed. And so the education part, recognizing what Courtney was saying, that students come from different backgrounds. And so everybody's not coming from a household in which they were taught right and wrong, or they're coming from neighborhoods sometimes, but they had to fight or they felt they had to fight in order to survive. So you have all those issues, but how do you create community here in a way that at least challenges students and inspires students to move in a new direction?
And sir, I can tell you from numerous phone calls, I mean, parents have called me and said they're gonna come down here and jump on so-and-so too. So that's just to echo what you just said about things, you know, in their neighborhoods and things. I've had mom and dad say, we're gonna bring the family, we'll come down, we're gonna stomp some butt. Please don't do that. And I've had mom and dad in jail before, you know. We're coming down and actually going to classrooms looking for X, Y, and Z.
But you're absolutely right in terms of what I meant and believe by the 80-20%. The 80% is the sleeping giant in the room. You know, of the 20% like that, these are numbers that I just used to make the point. Of the 20%, 10% of those are just following along with the other 10. There's going to be some that just going to do wrong no matter what, period. There's going to be others just going to follow for that peer pressure. But 80%, you know, of people here on campus, and like I said, you pick a city, they have good hearts, good intentions, and want to do the things that they should. But the 80% is the one that often take the approach, as long as it doesn't affect me, or what we call good government. Government is good as long as it doesn't affect me. We don't care about affecting nobody else. And that's what we need to awaken the sleeping giant, the 80% of us here, because the 80% will persuade the others. Either you conform, as you mentioned, change the culture, you conform to what we accept and condone and what we breathe and live here at Grambling, or you go find another university. They have 1-2 miles down the street. And the approach that I took as chief of Monroe, and I said this one time publicly, and I was told it might not be the best political correct thing to say, but the thought process is was the same then as it is now, is that I wasn't concerned with crime anywhere else in the parish but the city of Monroe. If I can get every criminal to move outside the city of Monroe, you will do my heart fine. Well, what we should be concerned with, now, of course, we don't want things to happen in the parish, Washington Parish, Lincoln Parish, or you know, in general terms, we don't. But here at Grambling, and what we're talking about, if you're going to be a knucklehead, go to Tech, go to ULM, but get away from Grambling. Now, we don't want to cause Tech and ULM and every college any problems, but we have to pick a choice, right? Either we can have it here or not. And which side do you choose? We choose to move them elsewhere. But that's waking the 80% up and really using that peer pressure against the 20% to conform or leave and go elsewhere.
Dr. Williams, I was going to ask you as a sociologist, what's your sense of some of the key issues that perhaps we could be addressing as a university that might at least help us begin to move in a positive direction?
From student perspective or university perspective?
Yeah, I'm thinking more in terms of when we look at the makeup of the students and the culture of the day, how could we be responding to that?
Well, I don't think it will hurt the university to maybe invest in training faculty and staff in something that's similar to like mental health first aid. Because what I've seen is a number of students depressed, sad, suicidal, boyfriend broke up with them, they can't take their midterms or final, and they need some special attention that they're not going to get from home while they're here. And they have these issues that snowball and they become problematic for them academically.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add, as I stated earlier, information is key. And as far as policy procedures, I think every student should be aware of the policy procedures. Say for instance, in student conduct, we have it's online, and a lot of students are not aware of it until they get in trouble. Then they want to say, show it to me in the book. But it's available even as freshmen, and you'd be surprised how many students are not aware of, because if you don't read, you don't know. You may not know, well, you can't have guns on campus, can't even smoke in your room, none of that. So I think the students need to be more aware about the policy procedures for departments. So
Is that a part of the FYE curriculum?
I personally don't remember being taught.
It is. Every student is assigned, code of conduct,
right.
choose if they want to read it
That's my
or
point.
not.
That's right.
But,
Because it's
yeah,
in the new handbooks that student affairs pass out every year.
But again, I'm hearing they can choose to read it or not, as
So we
opposed
should
to
make it optional.
having something that's perhaps more intentional
Yeah.
or more deliberate in making sure they're being exposed. That just may be an idea worth thinking about. As we're moving forward, we want to probably try to switch and give an opportunity for some of our audience members to ask questions or offer comments. And then we want to try to end up with maybe a time of thinking about at least some steps that we can take as a group, as a campus to begin. So if you're here, if you would step out, stand
Or
up,
at least stand up.
project for us. I apologize if we don't have microphones, but if you could just try to project your voice. So
I wanted to touch on what you said about the FYE. Well, FYE is mandatory for freshmen, so they're always packed. The building is always packed when I go. Maybe if you make some of these meetings mandatory, maybe that would, get up the number of students that come in. Because see, right now, there's not that many people here. Criminal justice is one of the biggest majors that we have here. So there's no reason it should be empty seats in here. It's just none. So I feel like with FYE, with it being mandatory and it's dealing with your grade, maybe if those meetings become mandatory, you would have more people be informed. And all of that.
anybody else question or comment from the floor before we?
I guess my biggest concern is I was thinking along the same lines of her making things mandatory, but a lot of things are mandatory, but they're not getting the message. They're not listening, they're not paying attention, they're most likely on their phone. So I guess instead of making it mandatory, because they will just come at it from a different perspective, like, oh, I have to do this just to get a grade, instead of really listening to what they are saying and what needs to be taught. So I guess I want to ask everybody, how do you feel like it'll be best to get the message instead of just not talking down on your suggestion, but I guess actually having them have the message, because I feel like the students won't really care unless it's close to them or unless it happens to them or anyone close to them.
Like I said, I think that it would be really nice if it was, just started as a simple class discussion. I feel like, when you get into your classroom and knowing your classmates and everything like that, I feel like you feel more comfortable with it and you're able to say it instead of sitting in a huge auditorium and being that one person that has to stand up and be like, I have a question with so many eyes on you. Like I said, a lot of people aren't comfortable with stuff. So, when we do have these mandatory forums and they're larger than this, a lot of people are scared to say something, suggest something. So I do feel like it just starts in just a simple classroom where you can be able to express that.
And I also think that when there are big discussions, I think that there needs to be more training, like sensitivity training with faculty and staff members, because just like the forum that we just recently had, I just feel like it was done poorly. They were and I get their excuse was, we're trying to get the message across, but you're not going to talk to me like I'm 6. I'm not going to get the message if you talk to me like I'm a child.
And just to add on to what they said, the intimate environment comes close to home for a lot of people. So like the small environment we have here, because y'all are really focused on the subject and focused about what we're discussing. So, maybe if there's more of, it'll take multiple of, meetings and sessions like this to where we can get the information out to a broader scope of students. But, like you said, you have to be comfortable about it, and comfortability comes in with being more intimate and being, targeted in a smaller group instead of in a huge auditorium.
Well, are there any other students who have any questions? Brittany?
I guess my overall statement is the connection piece. I think y'all spoke on is between administration and students. I noticed there's a huge disconnect. Not only that, but you do have a lot of administration that are disconnected from the campus, period. They don't know what's going on, and so when students come to find out, and they're not getting any information from them either. Just to kind of double back on the sensitivity training, for sure needs to happen, because a lot of our administration is just kind of flying by the seam of their pants at this point.
The social media thing, I think, is a great idea. I see a lot with other schools when they have incidents on their campus. And of course, with PWIs, the stigma isn't the same when it's an HBCU. So of course, you're going to have a lot more fires to put out than a PWI is. It's easier for them to sweep it under the rug as far as from their standpoint. But in HBCU, black people are cutting up. Let's make sure we put this on social media. Let's make sure we get an article out on this, because that's hot news. So from your standpoint, as far as like police officers, I see with other schools, they'll have a social media account on Twitter, and after an incident happens, the same message that you send out via text, you could put on Twitter. And I know the issue is, well, we don't want to put too much information out there, and that's fine. I guess that comes down to better PR, because there's a way of getting information out without getting all of the information out, if that makes sense. So to be able to let your students know, okay, this is there's been a situation on campus, is being dealt with. This is, we want y'all to do as far as students, stay in your rooms, X, Y, and Z. That can be retweeted by because most of the student body is on Twitter anyway. So it's so much easier to do it via Twitter than it is to send out a text, because I have a young lady here who I'm mentoring that's a freshman. She didn't get the text message. Her mother didn't get the text message, and her mother is fuming, like she's pissed, because she's wondering, well, how's everybody else getting this message? So just to get it out broader, because the text message is not enough. But just the connection piece, being on Twitter, we're big on Twitter, so why not use that? You know, we have these pages and we rarely use them. But I also feel like, just to piggyback off of the administration and our traditional aspect, we're stuck in the times. Administration doesn't want to move forward on a lot of stuff. And it's not just safety, it's education, it's just the communication aspect. A lot of things are outdated, and they're not willing to change on that. And we can't make a connection until y'all are willing to meet us in the middle, because we're willing to come here with y'all and say, okay, there's some things that we can change on our end, but y'all have to change on y'all's end as well.
And do that without an attitude.
Without the attitude, preferably. Without the, y'all are beneath me, y'all are the students, y'all don't know anything. Because a lot of us are very educated on things of how things could go differently, you know, and I think that should be respected more, because it's not. That just keeping it real with y'all, it's not respected by administration like it should be.
I don't think we take the time to have the conversation.
Right.
Because, and I guess it's both on the student side and the administration faculty side, because on the faculty sense, 8 to 5, you're in the classroom, you're teaching your butt off, and on the student side, of course, we're in those classes and everything like that, and administration are taking, care of the university whole. So from 8 to 5, with us doing all of that, I don't think the connection happens, because nobody is willing to stay just a little bit longer, to reach out to students. I would love to see a whole lot of faculty just now in the cab or something like that, or on a Friday or something, just coming to basically get the student aspect and just go out to talk to students and different things like that, because a lot of the time, it can't happen in the classroom. So, taking that time away from, time where we're just going home or something like that, we have to take the time on both sides to come together in a sense, because if we're continuing to have these same conversations, sacrifice, like somebody just said sacrifice. Sacrifice is key with forming a relationship, with bettering anything, especially at university. So we have to sacrifice more of our time to get to know one another better, because I just feel like we can't continue to claim grand family if we don't know each other. So.
Right. And I do think that, I know in the Mass Com department, I'm very close with all of my professors, and from my friends' standpoint that are in different departments, they're not. They barely know their professors and things like that. I hear a lot of times in the Mass Com department, you won't believe the way I used to be, but now that I'm doing radio, now that I'm doing TV, I'm a whole different person. So I just feel like, it does take that administrator to see something in you and to help you grow from it. So I think that if, just kind of bringing that, you don't have to be best friends with your professors, at all. But I just think that if once we get comfortable, like you said, once we're truly Graham fam, I think a lot of change will happen.
Bring the community aspect back, because we don't have that anymore.
So I'm hearing that there's not a sense of community?
That's just me personally. I can't speak for everybody else.
No, I don't think it's community.
I don't think it's a community. I don't. I think it's a business at this point. We're running solely as a business.
I think
we're
it's
losing the community in the other aspect, the family aspect.
Yeah, I think
a lot of us are not from here.
Yeah.
So this is our home away from home. This is our family away from our family. This is our community away from our community. So we can't just run solely as, okay, this is a school, this is a business, we gotta make money. I get that. But you have people here. These are real human beings here with feelings and emotions that require everybody else to connect with them. But there's disconnect.
We're going to go Sherry and then we're going to come here.
Okay, I hear all about this communication thing needs to happen, but I feel like sometimes when we communicate with people, we need to communicate and hear both sides. Sometimes I feel like you might communicate something with a teacher, and the teacher's just like, well, you should just deal with it. Or when I was here, I didn't have this problem, or I did this. It's like these people come from, times have changed, and these people come from different neighborhoods, different backgrounds. You don't know that person's story for you to be like, well, when you was here. I just feel like we need to get to a place where we can have a whole conversation and hear each other and not say like, I guess just hear each other. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, I guess, like you said, going off what they had already talked about and going back to the beginning, when you were asking about how the students were feeling and everything, and about when, I kind of forgot Brittany said, she hit it at the end when she said the students have emotions and feelings and everything. I guess my question is for Chief, because he may know the greatest answer to this. The students really didn't feel, the thing that I just kept hearing that week and the day after, why are we in class, why are we here, why are we there, and we don't know if the person has been caught, which I don't think the person was, in custody then. And I was trying to figure out why students were in class. I had a professor, she was she was just off the meter with how the students were sent to class, and about how the professors, they didn't really get the message about what was going on, because she said when she heard about it was a shooting, she just thought, oh, well, it's another shooting, nothing happened, somebody was shooting there, like previously somebody got shot in the arm and one was killed. And she said students would come to class, they were crying, they were just, people that were there that saw it happen, and then people that were just affected. She was trying to figure out, I guess, why we were in class and why everything was just going on throughout the day, like nothing had happened prior to, and about how the administration, I don't know, specifically administration had just sent out a letter saying, well, just basically be lenient on students, this has happened. Why didn't the students have time to recover from what happened? To that extent, something to that extent.
That's a great question, because I asked the same question. It wasn't me.
Yeah, I know it wasn't you.
I couldn't believe the next day when the team just on us, homecoming week, this happened yesterday, so let's go forward. I don't know. I can't answer that question. I was kind of shocked about the same thing, but that's not my decision.
Yeah, Adarian and I were going back and forth with each other, trying to figure out. I went to the president's office, and I was sitting there trying to figure out, well, I really didn't know what to say.
I was asking.
And why isn't the president even here for this conversation?
And that's period.
We're like stuck, because we were like stuck in the middle. We heard the aspect of, why we're in class, why are we continuing with these events, but on the other side, we were thinking, what would we be doing if we didn't have class, or if...
Yeah, because we were thinking like some students may cope differently with things. So like, well, people were talking about why we're going on homecoming events. Or we was, like you said, we were stuck in the middle. Some students may need to get out of their room, get their mind off and everything, and just go on with what's going on because they don't need to be in this state. And then some students may feel like, well, we need to, recuperate from what's going on. So we were just like, well, first of all, I just want to know, at least if we weren't going to cancel class the rest of the week, I know we weren't going to do that. Could we just give the students time to gather themselves that day and then start back?
Because I feel like that same day, it would have been a great day because the morale was so down that would have been a great day to have a student meeting of a huge sense to where everybody was in the morale to say, to understand and to be willing to listen and to be willing to accept information as it is, because you know.
Well, I asked President Gallo, you know, why did we have school? And he said because they knew it was an isolated shooting. And since it was isolated, they felt like everything could have went on. In which, okay, I get it. It was an isolated shooting, so they knew everything that was going on, but we didn't. So we're looking at Grambling and we're upset. So that's what I'm saying, like, we didn't know that. But I was, you know, fortunate enough to talk to Mr. Gallo and be like, President Gallo, and say, you know, why are we at school? Why are we doing this? And he said because it was an isolated shooting.
And surrounding schools were on lockdown. Like they said, we never went on lockdown.
We never went on lockdown.
I mean, it may not have done anything, I don't know. But we had the elementary and high school that was on lockdown. And then we were just out here in schools.
And you still could have, you know, came on campus at that time. Because I didn't know what was going on. Actually, I was asleep, and I had a friend that I saw it, and she's calling me, and we had a 24 hours of the lab, and I was about to come on campus. So I never knew that, you know, there was a lockdown. I didn't know anything like that. So I just feel like that just right there, it's just, we're always on two different pages as students and faculty.
Well, Dr. Holmes said that he can answer that question for you.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on part of it with the comment that you made, what President Gallo had said. But part of, and we all talked about it since we've been here, and what I'm hearing is a lot of just understanding policies, procedures, and what happened. And we have to talk about how we get that information out. But if I can speak from experience, and I can speak, and am speaking from a little bit different perspective than probably most of the faculty and staff here, because I'm like new here. The ink on my PhD is still drying. I just graduated last December. But managing a critical incident like just occurred, it's extremely difficult. And it wouldn't matter if we'd have canceled one day of classes and went back to second, because there would be people complaining while we go back on day 2, or on day 3, or on day 4. So on the outside, even looking in, and that's why I say she made the perfect comment, because you have to look at critical incidents like the one that occurred in the proper context. And in this case, I'm sure, and I don't know the details of the case, but I can tell by their actions what they probably knew, was that when the event happened, it was isolated. Nobody else on campus was at risk because the shooter was only trying to shoot the person that he shot. It didn't put the campus at large. It's no different than if you have this type of event in a neighborhood. You don't say everybody stay in and don't go to work. You still have to get up and move through those things. Well, that's where that information and training and knowledge and making sure people understand what procedures do people have to go through. What procedures does the police department have to go through when you have a deceased body that's laying on the ground for hours? Well, it's a process, and people don't understand that. But cops can't come in and cover it, move it, or do anything, because now you're tampering with evidence. So a lot of it is just procedure. One of the things I wrote down earlier that I think is huge in terms of communication, because that's the biggest. From what I'm hearing, a lot of comments, all of it seems like it's all channeled back to communication, getting the accurate information out there. At the end of the day, that's where it's coming down to. Well, nowadays, social media has to be a platform to organizations, whether you're Grambling, FBI, Monroe Police, Shreveport Police, you have to utilize social media, because that's what our young people today are using, and even some of the not so young have gotten more into it. Because you can have a phone, and I understand this happened in this case, you can have a phone that you register here to get that text message. But when you change your phone number, and just don't raise your hand if you did this, when you change your phone number, do you contact the administration and say, hey, I got a new phone? Well, the reason you probably missed that text, well, no, I'm saying that they can, but I'm saying it doesn't happen. We don't know that happened, but the point I want to make is this. When a person changed their phone number, they still have access to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever it is. So universities and the components within the university, whether you're in the public administration department like I am, we should have an active social media site so we can reach and talk to our students so they can join up. Or if you're at the police department, you just whoever. You have that because that's how people communicate. And then what we have to deal with is be as transparent as can, but not violating confidentiality or case management, things of that nature. So those type of things can help the communication. But again, what I do want to end my comment with is this. God forbid another critical incident happens. But I'm telling from experience, it is extremely complex. And it seems easy on the outside looking in, but you have very smart and very intelligent people, whether it's at Grambling or Monroe where I came from, a Shreveport, very smart and capable people trying to manage it, and they are considering a bunch of stuff at one time, but it is extremely complex. But it get back to communication. We can educate, in this case, the students and everybody on campus there, so when it happens, then we will know this is why this is taking place. This is why we're going to class. Because in the letter, well, I don't know if you all got this letter, but I know what President Gallo sent to faculty and staff. Any student that misses class, it will not be held against them. So a student could have taken it one day or as much time as they need. If, because there were a lot of people close to this person or know them or sat in class behind them, and it's going to affect them different ways. So he tried to manage that, but even the chief and I talked briefly, it's something that as the chief and as the leader, from president to faculty staff to teachers in the classroom, you don't want to have to deal with it, but it's complex. There's so much information coming. And all the time, because I've been there, we don't do as good as we could have in getting the information out in a timely manner. And that's the frustration I'm hearing from the students, and rightfully so. Those are things that, as leaders, we have to improve upon and work on every day.
Okay, we have a student here who wanted to make a comment. We're going to try to wrap up.
I just wanted to add to what Jimmy was saying and say, like, the next day after that we got the text that classes would resume, we should have gotten a text saying this, like, for counselor's information, or if you need to go to the counselor, you can go here, or counselor should have been more involved in the CAP and things, because there's a lot of people close to the victim. And I just feel like, as someone that knew both sides, I knew the victim and I also knew the person that shot him. It wasn't anybody there for us personally. Besides, like, talking to my friends and talking amongst each other, there wasn't anybody there. And a lot of people complain actually about not getting that text. So I feel like that's another thing that should bridge that gap.
Okay, so in the interest of time, what we really need to do is we're going to kind of try to wrap up by allowing each one of our panelists to have sort of a final comment. And perhaps in making your final comment, you will try to keep them tight, but in making your final comment, if you have an idea or a suggestion about a step that, because we've heard a lot of good ideas, we've heard concerns, some things that seem to be fairly easy fixes, the social media piece, the counseling piece. I was concerned about that, frankly, when this happened. I didn't see any notices saying that counselors were available. So there's certainly some things that we can do. So we're going to wrap by allowing each person to have a final statement and then to offer maybe one idea, just one idea from your perspective of what we can do as a university. All right? So we'll start with Sarah on the end here.
From a student, I'll just say use your voice. People are going to try and silence you, and I know that's not easy for everyone, but if I let anyone who tried to make me shut me up, I wouldn't be here. So just keep talking. And my step would just be run for a student office position. That's the way to get in and work hard to fix it. And also just get acquainted with your administrators. And if you have to get with them sometimes, just get with them. They'll be like, you know what, I'm doing this out of love. And you just get it together a little bit.
All right, Courtney.
I would just say use your voice as much as possible. That's the best thing. Me and Sarah have a radio show together where, in Harrington in the audience, where we truly speak on, how we feel. And I feel like that, to me, has been, the best thing that I've done on Grambling's campus is to be able to really talk and have feelings about things, just not letting it hold inside and build up. And so I think that, you know, when you're able to talk about something, I love Grambling as an institution more because I am a person on this campus that has a voice. So I think that's where you grow your love and, you know, when you really respect the tradition and everything like that. So just everybody really get involved. It really does make a difference.
Absolutely. And I was going to say the same thing that they said, but I guess we need to redefine that famous saying that we always say, stay woke. Basically staying informed about the things that are going on campus, staying informed about things that are going on with your peers, so that you can be able to take this information that you were provided with, the answers that we gave you all can share that amongst the group of students who weren't here. You know, and we have to take control of what's ours. This university is ours as a whole. It makes up of administration, faculty, staff, students, alumni, community members. This is a huge family. We have to communicate more. We have to reach out to one another more. We have to do our parts individually because that's where it starts. No matter where you come from, told me this when I first came in, no matter where you come from, it does not define where you can go. So don't let you know, negative situations or anything that happens, you know, define where you're going to go next. Say no to whatever, whether it's drugs or sexual things, different things like that, and report it. If you feel like you're in a situation where you're being harmed or something like that, please report it. That's the best thing that you can do. And I know a lot of times we feel kind of shy about it or kind of hesitant about reporting things, but at the end of the day, it's for your safety. So for those who don't have my number, you can take my number down just in case you want to reach out, ask some more questions. We're serving you all on a day-to-day basis, so my number is 318-497-2319.
Okay, I think from an administrative faculty standpoint, I agree with the young man also. About 4 years ago, the federal government was providing grants to K through 12 for someone to come in there and instruct teachers on how to deal with crisis situations because these things are on the rise. And when it happens on a campus, on a high school campus, a middle school campus area, a team with the crisis counselor is sent out. So, with that being said, our students are just 2 or 3 years removed from high school, sometimes 1. So we need to be able to meet that need in that crisis, rape situation, or there's some type of shooting. Because a lot of people who have a need to talk to somebody at the campuses, there's nobody here. I'll be pretty frustrated too and be thinking about leaving. This is me.
First of all, I think this forum is an excellent idea. I think it's information. I think we need to have more of these, and not just because when incidents happen, to be proactive. And I think we just need to talk more with each other, faculty, staff, students, because this university is made up of students, and that's why we're here. And I think even in my area, I think it would be a good idea for student conduct to be a part of the curriculum, that it be mandated. As freshmen, come in, learn about student conduct, what I need to know, what I can do, what I can't do, what my rights are, because students do have rights, and they don't even know what their rights are, a lot of them. So I think education is key, and I welcome that idea to implement that in FYE.
Well, first thing when I leave here, I'm going to send out emails to my bosses in regards to the Twitter account. I think that's a great idea. And a lot of these fights start with a verbal altercation, which leads to a physical altercation, which led to a double homicide one time here. If we can quit being slam gram and start being fam gram, it'd be a lot better. Because when the fights happen, they go out on social media. I know, slam gram, sorry about that, but it goes out on social media, and we're just broadcasting what we are here. We just like to fight and do all this kind of stuff. We don't like that. That 20% is, but there was 80% there last night that broke those girls up. They jumped in and said, oh no, y'all not going to jump on her 2 on one time. And those 2 went running down the hallway. Now, hopefully it's over with, is it? I don't know. Hopefully if you're part of that 80% that you see it, you'll stop it before it happens, I hope. My phone number, which I give out every class, every forum like this, is 318-243-3829. 318-243-3829. And I'll be working straight nights, probably through the spring semester, because most of the bad things that happen at night, and I don't feel right being at home, being at night, sleeping while everybody else is out here doing things. I think I'm more needed at night. So if you need me, give me a call, text me. I won't ask you your name or your number. Just please know that you can call me or text me at any time.
Thank you for your sacrifices.
I'm sorry.
Thank you for your sacrifices.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Certainly great forum. First of all, and thank you all for the invitation for me to be on the panel, and great participation from you all as well. So awesome job in putting this together, and you guys participating. The 2 points I'll leave with, one is just really to emphasize again that shared responsibility. When we talk about conflict resolution, as the chief just alluded to, is that when you see it happening, stop it before it gets started. That's where the 80% of shared responsibility must come into play. The second point and solution that I give to kind of help bridge the gap is, of course we say and we know it's easy to report the illegal or suspicious activity. But, there's this phrase out that snitches get stitches type deal, and everybody's afraid to report, even though that's, for the most part, a perception. Well, when I was at Monroe Police, I invested in, and it was the most significant investment I made as chief, but it was also the cheapest. That was the police department app. It's not one that you have to build, but it's an app that it was $500 for the city to pay for. But what that app allowed students to do, or people, citizens who, and it was free for students or for citizens, is that you can communicate with the leaders, whoever they put on their particular app, through email or call. It will tell you the good things about in this case, university that you want. Or if you see anything that you want to report, you can report activity via the app, and you can do it either by leaving your name or do it in an anonymous fashion. There was capability to take pictures and upload it. Say if you see your roommate with a gun, but you want to say it, you got the app to take a picture of the gun and send it. So that platform was probably the single most important investment that I made as chief of Monroe, and I think that will help start to build some of the apprehension about, if I tell, am I going to get in trouble? Now let me put this disclaimer out there as well, and I know I speak on behalf of the chief of this. Anytime people report any type of illegal activity from a criminal justice standpoint, we would love to have the name. So I'm not trying to throw it out the window. It makes the case a lot easier to put together and prosecute when we have names of the people involved. But if you just absolutely refuse, we need the information. It makes law enforcement job harder, but it's not impossible. So while the app would be good to report anonymously, I don't want that to be as the catch-all to never give you a name. But in place of giving you a name, I think that would be a great thing to look at and invest in. And it doesn't take long to get it, the app you can get up and running in probably a week, have it up and running. But it's a very good investment.
May I add one more thing, please? We got beat up pretty bad right after the homicide happened. We being the police department. I don't have too much pride to call an outside agency that has more resources come in to help, because we had to solve this. We had the suspect's name in 23 hours of the double homicide. He was in jail before 48 hours. I think that's pretty damn good for a police department to do. So I credit some of my officers. I inherited some officers that, I'm sorry, I'm working on those guys. Right, Stephanie?
That's right.
So, but we are moving forward. We're having more experience come in. So if you have a problem with one of my officers, like I've always said, I need to know about it. Whether it's a call or text message. I'm sorry for going over like that.
It's okay. It's fine. Okay. So, Lenita, what's your final thought on this discussion?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and helping bring awareness to this issue. Would you like to say something?
Yes.
Okay.
With me being a non-traditional criminal justice major, I too like to use my voice. So I am lending you guys my needs, my wants, my desires to give input, because I do have a freshman here as well. And when I'm at home in Shreveport, I'm worried about him, but that's okay. I have a voice, and I would love to use it on y'all's radio station or whatever, okay? My name is Stephanie Lewis.
Wednesdays at 6.
Wednesdays at 6, okay.
So as a sort of conclusion here, there are a number of great ideas we heard from the panel in terms of some first steps. I took notes. I'm sure Ms. Logan took notes. And so we're going to try to follow up on this in some way so that moving forward, we can build on this. A couple of things occurred to me as the discussion was going on that I just want to kind of throw out there, and maybe we all can chew on it and think about how we might be able to act on some of these things. I was thinking, what would it do to help this process along if student leaders and maybe faculty or whatever got together, formed a committee, and came up with a statement about the university's values? What are our values? And then how do we post those around campus in ways to constantly remind students? As a teacher, I know you can't say something once and expect people to get it, but I think as you subliminally even send that message all around campus, here are our values, and those things are in front of us. When we have a conflict, here's what we do. Here's how we respond, react. So that may be one thing to consider, a conversation about values. The other thing would be maybe some student organization initiative for this room to be packed. If we had point people for all of our student organizations, the marching band, football team, the basketball team, all the sports teams. We had the fraternities, all those people. We had a point person for each of those groups. And said, you're responsible for getting 5 people from your group in the audience to be a part of this dialogue. I guarantee you the next time we wouldn't have space in this place for that kind of thing. And it also may be a way to begin and to sustain a conversation about these issues among student leaders. Not just student government, but we have leaders across the platform. So that may be another thing to consider. And then, as a part of that process, maybe thinking about how do we begin to develop some accountability circles. Small conversations I heard you talking about that could be held on an ongoing basis. We get some popcorn, and we get in a room together, and we just talk. And maybe invite some faculty. There are some of us who care, who would spend the extra time and hang around and come around, on a more casual basis to be a part of those conversations. So I think we do. I love what you were saying. This is our place. This is our house. And we can decide what this is going to be. And so I think we have a tremendous opportunity to invest in that and push forward. So I hope tonight will be the beginning and that we'll commit. I know Ms. Logan's mind already is working, and we're talking about next steps. I do want to acknowledge that Ms. Logan, as well as a couple other people, were very critical in this process. I want them to stand up and tell them a little bit, just introduce yourself real quickly. You know who you are.
Come on, guys.
And so that people know that you are a part of this conversation and you intend to be a part of it going forward.
Well, I enjoyed the forum. I'm the advisor to the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice. I teach criminal law. And just talking about it and coming up with solutions will make a difference where I can.
Tell me your name in case you don't know you.
I'm Dr. Willie in criminal justice.
Okay.
And I'm glad to be here tonight. This was very productive, and I hope we have other forums.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
My name is Linda Logan, and I am the founder of SAVE, Student Against Violence in Education. But it was a thought that came to mind that I shared with my supervisor that I wanted to do something because I'm a freshman here on this campus too. And I know the danger, and I'm not saying that mine is the perfect job, but I'm doing what I can as a parent, as a concerned a staff member. I'm just getting involved. And I decided to reach out and form this committee and try to get everybody on board. And we will be moving forward soon. Soon as this semester is over, I'm sure we'll probably keep Dr. Marcus here pretty busy with these type of forums.
Well, I'm Bill Prescott. I'm a campus minister, tech and Grambling here, and mainly been working with international students. But we're also wanting to start an impact movement here, if it's possible. And just, I was appreciated everything getting started and being a part of it. Thanks.
So to our audience, we want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come out and be a part of this dialogue tonight. And we want to ask you if you would join us in thanking our panel who has participated tonight and giving us some food. And I'm very appreciative of my Facilitator who is one of my students. Just excited to have you and looking forward to how we're going to build on this and we're going to make some noise on this campus. So thank you all again for coming out. We're looking forward to next time. All right, take care.
Yeah,